Hi everyone, I'm Vince and welcome to How to Prepare for the GRE as I See It. So I have a little picto chart here. I'll just guide you through that. So start off by getting familiar with the test if you're not already. Learn about it, see how long it is, how many sections it has, how it's scored, and the best place to go for that is the writer of the test, ETS. So ets.org/GRE will give you a lot of information about the test and how it works. Once you're feeling a little bit more up to speed, maybe right after that, or maybe after you've practiced a little on your own, take a practice test just to give yourself a baseline score. And that'll probably get you motivated too, and it'll give you a comparison point to see maybe how far you are away from your goals. So once you have a goal, then it's time to start actually building your fundamentals, reading, vocab, math skills, essays, and then once you're feeling a little bit stronger with your concepts, you can start to learn technique and practice with real GRE questions and then review. So when you look at this page, lots of info here, but I'll just go through the main things that people generally ask me about. So like I said, get familiar. There's a link to ETS's website and their software that has the 2 practice tests. You can download it for free. Set a score goal. A lot of my students will ask me about how much time they should spend per day. I would say for the average person, maybe 1 or 2 hours a day. Split that time up into a couple of different sessions if you can. I think that's much better than trying to do like one marathon session on a weekend, for instance. And make sure you work on every part of the test every week. In other words, the verbal part, the math part, and the essays. And one other thing you should know about splitting up your time, I like to say split your time into maybe about a third learning concepts like math and vocab, maybe about a third of your time practicing concepts on practice questions, and then about a third of your time reviewing and analyzing the questions you've already done to make sure you can explain them and that you didn't get them right based on any kind of luck. So you really want to be able to not only get things right, but articulate exactly why your answer is right, why the other answers are wrong, and so forth. So your action here is to get out of some kind of planner and actually schedule your studying to make sure it gets done and it's consistent. So the next step, step 3, building foundational skills. I have some action steps for learning vocab, for building your reading comprehension, for learning math, learning how to write the essays, and for dealing with logic questions. And in this section, you'll see a bunch of different links to the books I recommend, as well as some different advice. So you can check those out at your leisure. So after you kind of have your concepts going, then I think it's time to focus a bit more on technique, because it's easier to use technique if you have a good foundation of actual knowledge of the subject. So I can obviously teach you technique. I'm a GRE tutor. I've been doing this for 8 years now. But if you don't want to work with me, I think probably if you're watching this, most of you won't be working with me because you probably found me on Amazon. You are perfectly welcome to work with me, of course, but if you don't, you do need to learn technique from somewhere probably. So I have a video course for you that will teach technique for all the kinds of verbal questions on the test, as well as including some helpful math techniques. Or you can, of course, get technique from a book. The one thing I would say, if you are getting technique from a sort of a static source, like a video course, like a book, keep in mind that you want to be flexible with the technique. It's not so easy to say, here's how you do a verbal question, step 1, step 2, step 3, and you're done. It's not that simple. You sometimes have to kind of be flexible and adapt your technique to different scenarios, particularly for verbal. So be patient with your technique for verbal especially, and even be patient with math technique. There's sometimes multiple ways to do things. So try to refine your technique as you get better with the test. So probably my most popular question is, what do I practice with? So the most important things, I think, are definitely the official guide written by ETS, which is the writer of the test, and then the verbal and quantitative practice supplements, because they have real GRE questions. Real GRE questions are so much more valuable than other companies because they're more realistic, more complex. They have to actually make you think, and a lot of other companies, really almost every other company, will probably write questions that are much simpler than real GRE questions. So you can supplement, but then you want to make sure that you've actually not only done all the ETS questions, but you've mastered them. In other words, you can explain them and justify your answers. So practice, obviously really important. Eventually you're going to be taking practice tests to practice your test taking. And then the most neglected but yet most important step of prep is review. So what I mean by review is look at a problem, doesn't matter whether you got it right or wrong, see if you can identify what the problem's testing, the best technique to use on the problem, and what you can learn from it. So, for example, as you can imagine, do certain problems 10, 20, 30 different times with different students over the course of demonstrating certain problems for students. And sometimes that 20th time I look at the same problem, I notice something new about it that makes it not only easier to explain to that student, but that informs me about something else or teaches me something else about the GRE that I didn't know or I didn't realize, and makes me just that little bit better at the test. So definitely a good use of your time to look back at problems multiple times, even making sure you've absolutely mastered the problem. You can justify where your answer's coming from, why the other choices are wrong, and so forth. So once you're done reviewing things, then go back and work on what you think you need to, keep practicing, and obviously you'll take practice tests, and then that's a chance to work on your timed test taking before when you're learning skills, mostly be doing things on time so you can build your skills. So if you're interested in GRE tutoring, that's what I do. So if you want to schedule a free 30-minute session with me, go ahead if you are actually interested in potentially working privately with me. And if not, even feel free to email me just with any questions about this page or your prep. I really like helping people with the GRE because I think it can be somewhat difficult for people to get good information about the test. So, because there's so much information online and a lot of it is contradictory or lots of different opinions. So go ahead and email me if you want, and good luck. Hopefully your prep is successful.